Jamal Sutherland's mother, Amy Sutherland, believes her son was murdered at the Charleston County Detention Center in January. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I talk with her one-on-one. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Miss Amy Sutherland, it's so nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, and welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Obviously, you are the mother of Jamal Sutherland.
Yes.
Who unfortunately died after, being treated, as many people felt like, unfairly and unhumanely inside the Charleston County Detention Center. And I know when he was there that particular day, he said this: "God protect me. God protect me. He is the Holy Spirit. This is not right. Yes, officer. I'm not resisting, officer. I can't breathe."
That's right.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Sutherland. How is God giving you peace and protecting you right now?
Well, Jamal had a message for me before he left. And he said, "Mom, you're never going to see me again." And Jamal would say things and he would prophesy and they would come true. But one thing he said is at the hospital, he kept saying, "I'm ready to go be with the angels." And he said it 4 days in a row. So because Jamal had already prepared me almost 3 months before he died, I found some peace in the fact that he was where he wanted to be. He said he wanted to go to heaven and be with angels. And if you believe in God, you believe in Jamal. I know that's where he is. So that I don't get as discouraging. I do have crying spells, but most of the time, I just think he wanted to be there.
Yeah. And you said that, he was preparing to go to heaven. And I know you're a very spiritual woman. But here on this earth here, how were you preparing for it mentally as a mom?
As a mother, I had some doubt as to this time when he said it, because Jamal never expected to be going anywhere but to that sentence. So if he thought he was going to die, he thought it was going to be the center that was going to hurt him. That's what he thought he was going to get hurt at. Because he said, "Mom, they're going to kill me in here." And so he thought that the center would be his demise.
Wow.
So.
Now, I know, take me back to that particular day. I believe it was, January 6th, if I'm not mistaken? 5th. How did your day start and how did it obviously end?
My day started out waiting for a phone call from Jamal that I did not receive. After about 2 o'clock, I decided I was going to go with my girlfriend. So we went to visit some of the sick. And my husband called and he spoke to my girlfriend and she said, "Amy," she said, "come on, I need to take you home." And I said to her, "I know Jamal's dead." And she said, "Why would you say such a thing?" I said, "Because I know my child's dead." I actually felt like something wasn't right. And so he had died that morning and nobody contacted us. Nobody. He died at 10:30 when they came to tell us it was 4:30. They said things like, "We didn't know who he was. We didn't know where he came from." And they said they didn't know he was mentally ill. But I can dispute every lie they told, because when he got to the jail, he says, "I need my medication." He says, "I need somebody to talk to." So if he wasn't having problems, why would he need medication? And why wouldn't you find out what medication it was? Because there was a nurse walking back and forth. She never said a word to him. But he was begging for medication. So that it was very devastating to know that he was trying to get help. And not one soul, not one person in that entire room tried to help him. So he was on his own. It was just him and God. And then I saw the tape and he was again praising God. And I found some peace because He did not go out saying or doing anything that would have hurt anybody. And a lot of people are saying that Jamal was violent. Jamal was never violent. They speak about a fight, and Jamal was not in that fight. And I want everybody to know he was never in that fight.
And Ms. Sutherland, let me ask you this. When did you hear that he died at 10:30? And when did you hear that he actually, when did you hear that he died at 4:30? And when did you actually hear that he died at 10:30?
We found out he died at 10:30 because we made a phone call to a friend of ours. Mm. And he said he's been dead all day long. But the coroner, and the coroner, when they came out to tell us about Jamal's death, we heard that he'd been tased. It made one connection. And when I saw that tape, I know outright why nobody wanted us to see that tape and why they didn't want to tell us the story. Mm. And so for almost 4 months, we didn't know what happened to him. Wow. Nope.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people said, hey, they didn't know who Jamal was inside the detention center. Did anybody at Palmetto Behavioral Health tell the people at the detention center this?
Yep. Because you can hear there was a young lady and she was super rude. She's one of the nastiest persons that I've ever met because she hollers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we doped him up. Take his boot to jail. And I was angry because if Jamal was asking for help, why didn't they give him help? They were responsible for his life, but they didn't help him. They choose to crucify him because I think if Palmetto had not been in that picture, Jamal would be alive. He wouldn't be dead because some doctor or somewhere, somebody, even if they took him to the emergency room, somebody, and there's a man that says Jamal died because he was violent. And that's a lie. When they pick him up from the center, he says, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And he answered to a young man and he goes, yes, sir. And Jamal had always been respectful of people in authority. But he didn't fight anybody. They said he knocked somebody over. But I asked why, when charges were filed against him, that person not called for. They never called the person he assaulted to be a witness to anything. So that I don't even know what Jamal did. I don't know if Jamal did anything because the young lady was out there. She was lying.
And why didn't she call you?
You tell me that, and I'll give you $1 million. Because anytime Jamal was having any problems, I usually got a call, and he doesn't have problems a lot. His last 2 times were horrible. But everybody in there knew me, so we had people that knew Jamal. And nobody called.
When did they apparently and allegedly doped him up, as you mentioned, did you know at the time what medications they actually put him on?
No, we did not. I saw one of his files, they shot him, I think, 5 or 6 times. So she doped him up. She knew exactly what she was talking about. And what got me is Jamal was on a fall watch because he had fallen twice before. And he fell on a nurse before. And he didn't go to jail. So why would he go to jail if he fell again? You knew he was doped up. And that's the terrorizing that. You dope somebody up, and he gets excited, and he falls. No cop. And now the crew's there. They dope him up. He falls, and they call the cops. But the cops were called, I think, mainly because of the incident of the fight that Jamal was not a part of.
As a matter of fact, Miss Sutherland, did you ever find out whatever happened apparently to the other patient who was taken to jail as well?
Not a word has been spoken. Not one word. And in order for things to have been right, we should have seen him the same time with Jamal. When Jamal's going to the jail, I don't know where he is, but he's not with Jamal. Leaving from the same facilities. Should have been getting there at the same time.
And let me ask you this too. What has been your communication, Ms. Sutherland, between the sheriff and the solicitor from January to right now?
The solicitor was calling us. We spoke to her about every week or so. Sometimes every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But at I think it was the second or the third month, I said to everybody in that building, I said, y'all covering something up. And Slag was in there too. And so I let everybody know that they were covering something up. And everybody goes, no. But yeah, they were covering it up. And I held responsible everybody that had any part to do with Jamal's situation that day. Because any one of those people could have just said, yeah, Miss Sutherland, it's a horrible tape. And then my heart would have been ready, this is horrible. But from what I heard and what I saw were two different things.
What did you hear and what did you actually see sitting inside the solicitor's office when you were allowed to watch this actual tape?
When I first saw the first piece of the tape and Jamal's howling, hallelujah, hallelujah, I got up and I ran out the door. Because I said, again, he's praising God. Yeah. And they're treating him like a dog. And so my baby son, Jamal, he says, Mom, you got to watch this tape. He said, you'll never know what happened to your child if you don't watch the tape. And so I sat and I watched, and I got angrier and angrier because it was too many lies told. Too many lies had been told about my one precious child. And he was very precious to us. Nobody else might have seen him, but his mental illness was always a part of our life.
And you knew how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I couldn't understand. If they're the professionals, why did none of them know what to do? They're professionals. I'm just his mom, I guess. So I didn't have enough sense that if you called me, I would go get my child. But if I received a call, I guarantee you I got my pajamas to get Jamal. That's how close we were. I would go in my pajamas to go pick him up. But they chose to give their judgment. They were the trial, the jury, and the executioner. That's what I felt. They believed that they could do it all. And so in that little cell, they did it all. And the worst thing is when they're finished murdering him because he says, I can't breathe. At that point, Jamal goes limp. He goes limp. If you look at that tape, you can see he's not moving after that. And then they had the audacity to drag my boy's body. To drag his body. And he's already expired. And not only did they drag his body, I'm going to say, I saw the guy walk his feet up on my baby's back. And after my child is dying, I watched it a second time. Yeah. After Jamal is gone, the female has her feet on top of his head. And I want to know where she get any of her training from. I never heard nobody on this earth say, put your feet on a dead man's head. And so I want to...
And I know, and a lot of people are asking Ms. Sutherland, why did they tase him for so long with two tasers simultaneously multiple times apparently, according to their admission on camera? while he had his hands behind his back and submitting to their commands?
I can't fathom, because they say that one taser can kill a man.
Right.
But if the two of you tasing them at the same time, telling each other instructions out what to do, giving instructions, I'm tasing them, I'm tasing them, I'm tasing them. They were in communication. So it wasn't like one of them didn't know what the other one were doing. They knew exactly what both of them were doing. And they did it anyway.
And WCIB reported that evidence from a SLED investigation claims Sutherland, quote, became unresponsive and, as you know, died as officers distracted him from his jail cell to bond hearing for the misdemeanor assault charge. Did they tell you what he became unresponsive from?
He says, I can't breathe. And when he says I can't breathe, there's two things that's happening. They're putting a spit bag over his head.
Right.
He's already saying I can't breathe. Common sense would say, don't do anything else to him. Get him some help. I guess they didn't have common sense. But I believe they knew exactly what they were doing. I firmly believe in my heart that the both of them knew, and they treated him like he was an animal. Me and my husband talk. If we did that to an animal, we go to jail. And the jail is doing it to a human being. And he was precious. There was nothing in this world he didn't do for anybody. He just would do for anybody. Give them anything off his back. And that's why when he says, what's the purpose of all of this? That was another hint. Stop. You don't even know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so if you're being beaten and you don't know why, I'd ask, what's the purpose of all of this? Because he was strongly in his moment of, he must be wanting to live. But there's an officer and nobody gives him an answer. He never got an answer.
Let me ask you this, because Chef Graziano stated that, quote, she did not recall when she watched the video for the first time. And recently on Twitter, Congresswoman Nancy Mace said it was 1 or 2 days later. Did the chef tell you when she actually first saw the tape?
No, she never told us anything about when she saw the tape. But I know that there were lies being told. And I know that the coroner, she kept telling us, oh, we work for Jamal, we work for Jamal. You ain't working for no Jamal, and you could see a tape of him being murdered, and you gonna tell me you don't know how he died. She wasn't working for Jamal. She was working for somebody else. It was not for my job. Nobody was working for him. But that's the story that came out.
Did you find out who suggested at the facility or the EMS to get Jamal to the detention center versus a hospital?
Never found out anything about that night. Because even when he's being arrested,
right,
there's a young lady, a black female, saying that they am a effer. I know he heard plenty people. And I still can't fathom, if you're a police officer, why would you say that? And on camera, that somebody said to me, they do it so often that they didn't think anything was going to happen. And I truly believe they just thought, hey, we murder him and ain't nothing else to it.
Was this a North Charleston police officer?
Yes.
Did you get the police records for when Jamal left the facility to the jail?
My lawyer probably has it.
Okay.
Only thing we saw were his medical records. And that's how I knew that he was having problems. That's how I saw that Jamal was on a fall watch, meaning that he could have fallen over at any time. And if they say he did it 2 or 3 times, and this time you decide. And I don't know how one person was able to make that decision, because she was not his medical doctor. His medical doctor said that day, because he asked, he says, I want to get out of here. He said, I feel worse now than when I came here. He asked to get out. and the doctor said he cannot be discharged because they said he was a harm to himself or somebody else. So if you send him to jail and you give him instructions that he can't leave, the doctor must have no authority over there. The doctor has no authority to me. Because if a worker can go over the doctor, that's sad.
What about the licensed professionals, to include the MD and social workers, who allowed, obviously your child, a patient who was inpatient, to walk off of a locked unit?
I don't know.
Have you received any satisfaction from Palmetto?
None. Palmetto held us closed. And we were asking for it. And my lawyer, I don't know whether they went and got paperwork or what, but probably 3 or 4 months later, we got us closed. The police department has yet to give me his clothes. His clothes is a part of my closure because I want those clothes just to smell them. I want to put them in a bag and I want to keep that smell forever. I just want that. I want the people who murder him, I want them prosecuted. But I've heard we may not be able to charge them. Oh, I've heard it more than once. We may not be able to charge them. When they killed Jamal, you should have opened the cell door next to where Jamal was and put them in it. But they lally. And those people are still free to this day. They are still free to this day. No charges brought against them, not by anybody. Because the officer that stood, that lieutenant, he should have said, hey, y'all getting out of hand with this young man. He says nothing. So I want him to go to jail with the other two. Or the other four, whoever gave those instructions, they all need to be in jail.
Why do you think, Ms. Sutherland, that Scarlett Wilson hasn't brought up manslaughter charges on the 2 former officers?
I don't have any idea. They're looking for some reason, and you don't need a reason. You see all you need to see. Because if Jamal had murdered a white person, even if he was an officer, he would have been straight to the jail cell. And we have been speaking boldly and truthfully I can't understand what's going on. I can't understand why the solicitor says that she can't tell. And I tell everybody, if she can't tell, she's 3 blind mice. She has to be 3 blind mice. Because anybody could see the murder. It was a murder. It was a murder. And when you let people get away with things like that, you call them for trouble. You really are. And I'm trying to be as peaceful as Jamal was. I don't want to be getting angry, because when I get angry, then I might say something that's really damning. But what can I say that's damning more than the tape? The tape shows it all. It shows exactly what they did to him. Exactly. So I don't see why they should get away with it. And if they get away with it, then the next time it's done by African American, you have to let them get away with it too. You don't let one person do it. It's a one-sided story. So I want to see some justice. We haven't received any justice. No. There's not been justice for me.
And as a disclaimer, I tried to reach out to the solicitor last week. She told me she didn't have time for me for an interview, so.
Okay.
And let me go back to the bond, obviously back to the detention center, because obviously they were trying to get him to go to bond court. What about that judge who demanded him to come to bond court? Did the solicitor or sheriff tell you why he made that decision?
I didn't hear that it was made. Nobody told me that the judge demanded him to come. I've never heard that. You're the first person I ever say that. I've never heard that. Never heard that. Because Jamal has the legal right to not go to bond court. Especially when they ask you, what is bond court?
Right.
Nobody said what bond court was. You better come on out. Nobody says to him, Jamal, we're going to try to get you out of here. But Jamal had no right in there. So I don't know what he would have been going to bond for.
And I know the sheriff said, quote, presently the family is not ready for the public to see the recordings of the death of their loved one at the time.
Wrong. Nope. She keeps saying it. And if she heard it, she didn't hear it from me and my husband or any of my children. I wanted to see that tape so bad. They would not allow us to see that tape. So how can we say we didn't want it out there when we didn't have access to it? I still can't figure out. We never had access to those tapes. So she heard it from somebody else. It wasn't my family.
And why did it take them at least 4.5 months to allow you all to see that tape?
That was a part of the cover-up to me. That was a part of a cover-up. And they knew at some point somebody had to show something. So why would you wait and have my family in agony? Because we wanted to know what happened to him.
Right.
But they didn't give us any answers. So my whole family was just being terrorized at the time. And I believe that just wait on the system. That's the biggest mistake in my entire life. Waiting on the system to tell you the truth about a killing of a mentally ill black man in South Carolina jail. And just like I said, sometimes I don't know if I was naive or being fooled, but I felt like we were being fooled. And I felt like a fool for accepting it. I felt my duty should have been to Jamal. And we've been demanding to see that tape since he died.
And unfortunately, he was mentally ill, and I hate to ask this again, Ms. Sutherland, but why do you think the video was not immediately made to you?
Because they wanted to cover it up. I'm going to tell you, they wanted to cover this one up. But what everybody doesn't understand is that Jamal was extremely gifted. And so him being gifted, when he goes in there, he tells them things that they don't want to hear. Like, you didn't read me my rights. I know my rights. He says that even at Palmetto. He said, I know I got rights. And even after him giving such a stern warning, they didn't have enough sense to read him his rights. Even after my child says, need medication, need somebody to talk to, y'all know I ain't crazy because I know y'all ain't read me my rights. And see, he heard voices sometime, but he was never out like, he was never mentally ill like that.
Right.
He heard voices. He was not violent, never broke a chair in the house, touched the wall. He never did any of that. So if he did it, it must have been because you had him doped up. Because he didn't do it at home.
At home. This might be a tough question here, but what drug were you told was administered to your son causing the cold the therapeutic effect?
I don't know. And that, you're talking on his autopsy, it says that,
Yes,
guess what? That does not mean anything but that he is in therapy with drugs. So when that's written on the report, there's no such thing. He wasn't in therapy for drugs. He wasn't out of his mind. He wasn't doing any of those things. And she puts something about him being in an excited state. And the psychologist said, if he was in an excited state, that means that he was throwing around 4 or 5 policemen at a time. It's a strength beyond strength. Where she got that one from, I don't know.
As a matter of fact, the pathologist J.C. Upshaw Downs, who worked with the solicitor's office on the case, said that the cause of death is undetermined, but could be related to the excited state he was combined with.
There was no excited state. And I hope that everybody who hears this You don't need to lie on my child. He's gone. Give us some peace and stop lying on Jamal. Those things are not true.
Okay.
Jamal did not attempt to touch anyone that day. And if he was in an excited state, he could have thrown some of them around the wall. Jamal was extremely strong. And when they're trying to get his arm and they're saying, straighten arm up.
Right.
His arm's paralyzed. You couldn't look at his arm because it's like this. He was paralyzed, and not one human being in that building said, hold on, something's wrong with his hand because of it. And you're breaking his, I still believe he probably broke his arm because we don't know the truth. There's a big, humongous band-aid on the back of his leg. Wow. Nobody said anything to us about it. I saw it after watching the tape. Me and my baby son. And we said, what's that?
Right.
And we looked closer. There's a big, humongous band-aid on the back of his legs. So we don't know who heard him, but somebody heard him.
I know it's been reported the solicitor allowed you to see the video even when she did, even though she wasn't required to, apparently. Did she tell you why she wasn't required to allow you to see the tape?
Because the state of South Carolina give the solicitor the right to show the tape to who she wants to. Okay. That within itself is beyond anybody's thinking. Why would you not show his family the tape? Why did it take so long? That tape should have been shown to us the day after he died. Because they knew they had those tapes. They knew they had the tapes. And I'm going to tell you something. Some of the things that you guys saw on the tape, we didn't see all of that. At the Palmetto, right, they got tape that we never saw. Because when I saw it on TV, right, never saw those tapes. Hmm. So everybody must have had tapes hiding them. Because I didn't see them. It's not true.
And have you found out, Ms. Sutherland, why SLED took 5 months with the video to make their decision?
They have to be a part of the cover. And I'm going to say it because no state agency should have the right to deny presence of anything to a family. We should be the first one to see it. When you're showing that tape, we should be there so we'll know if that's the real tape, if something was doctored. It's just too many ifs and ands. But we didn't have a right to see it.
And I'm sure you probably noticed, but was there an autopsy done? And if so, what was the list cause of death?
None. She couldn't see what caused his death. Hmm. And that's why when we spoke to her, it was one thing. Hmm. But when we saw the video, I'm working for Jamal. I'm working for Jamal. I'm working for Jamal. You don't mean Jamal Sutherland. You mean another Jamal. You mean another Jamal. Because I entrusted that the coroner should have told the truth. There was nothing that she had a part of. So why wouldn't you tell the truth? She wasn't getting anything. But I still say there were so many cover-ups.
And did you, by chance, Ms. Sutherland, I guess I might be wrong about this, but did you ever get a copy of the 911 calls?
Nope. I heard on the TV some of that call, and the young lady hollers Jamal at the end of the tape. Hmm. They said he was a part of the fight, and that's why he got carried away. He was not a part of that fight. There was a young man who we don't know what happened to him, but he was the one fighting. Mm. He was the one that was fighting two other patients. And I can't understand How can one man fight two people in a controlled environment? Somebody wasn't doing their job. Somebody wasn't working that night. They must have all been playing Scrabble or something because they weren't working. Because first of all, Jamal was supposed to be under your watch. And under your watch means you got your eyes on him 24 hours a day. And he was able to do whatever. But that young man, when Jamal got involved, that young man has been taken off of that floor and sent to Jamal's area. So you take somebody that's beating somebody up on one side and you put him on another side. Explain that to me. I don't know why they would do that. But Jamal said, Mom, he said, the white female says, I'm never going to leave this place. And she meant it. She meant it. He never left that place. Because they were step to not taking care of him. And then they sent him to be executed. And I'm never going to hold my words back. And I have no need to lie on anybody. That was some of the most poorest health care. I could have sent Jamal to the zoo. And the animals would probably protected him better. Because I want somebody to answer, where do you send mentally ill people? If he's in a crisis and he's hearing voices, and for 3 days he says, Mom, the voices are getting louder and louder. So they weren't taking care of him already, because the voice is getting louder, and the voice should not be getting louder. I put you in the hospital because you was hearing the voice. And now he said, I have to go to the hospital. He said, because the voices are getting loud. And I don't think he ever heard anything like that. Because he was never startled the way he was that day. I don't think Jamal had ever heard a voice like that voice.
Did the facility even know where Jamal was going after they called the police?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
She says, lock him up. She knows. And let me say this on camera.
Yes, ma'am.
There's charges being pressed against Jamal and the other young man. The police officer says, I need to see the person who's pressing charge. And she said, no, they're inside. And you don't do your job and go inside and say, hey, I need to see them. Because I never in my life knew that my neighbor can call the cops and she can testify that I did something wrong in my house. But that's what they allow. They allow one person. And they let her press charges on them. She pressed charges against the other young man, and she pressed charges against Jamal. She was not the victim. She was not the victim. But 2 African-American male and a young lady that's a white young lady standing on the step talking about how she doped Jamal up. And you believe every word she says. Because you were told you can't go in that building. You said it 3 or 4 times to her. You got your gun on. And you go into a mental facility with your gun on your hip. Supposedly, somebody else could have been as sick as the other person was. They could have took that gun off and killed many people. So let them answer, why would your police officer go into a mental facility with his guns on? Because the tape we only saw one black man. The tape on TV shows a white man attacking him from the front and a black man attacking him from the back. We didn't see that. We didn't see an ambulance. We didn't see any of that, what they showed us. Because somebody said there was an ambulance there. Me and my husband said, no, there was no ambulance. But then they released another video
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't see any ambulance there on the tape that we saw.
Did they tell you the EMS was there?
No,
Wow.
no. Nobody ever mentioned the EMS. I heard about the EMS when I watched it on TV with the rest of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched it on TV, and then the EMS does not have the authority to put a mental ill patient in the jail. They don't have that authority. There's not a doctor on any ambulance I've ever been in. They had no right to even say that they released him to the police officer. Look back in law and tell me what EMS worker has a degree in psychology and that he can go against what the doctor said. Because I still say the doctor said he couldn't come out.
Mm-hmm.
But all these people made decisions. All these white people made decisions. Because I'm sorry saying all these people, they were all those white people making decisions. When he gets there to the jail and he's being jacked around, all white men. All the white men. Pushing him around. Bullying him. Teasing him about his mental state. They were teasing him about his mental illness. But he was more intelligent than any of them because he knew how he was supposed to act. Even though they were agitating him. I mean, they were really trying to push his button. And then you see them jack him up and take him to the back. He shouldn't have even been down there. He was not a criminal that they thought couldn't be reformed. He was a mentally ill person. Like the cell he was in wasn't even for medical. They never took him to the medical floor. They took him to the cells where the worst prisoners in the jail are kept. And they all knew that he was sick. When they were taking him back there, they knew he was sick. And I don't care what nobody says, he did not belong there. Tell me why you didn't allow Jamal to make a phone call home. Somebody tell me why he was not given a phone call. That's a part of his rights. That was his right to make a phone call. Jamal wasn't given a phone call. So I guess they saw him as dirt from the minute they saw him. They saw him as dirt from the minute they saw him. He suffers from dry mouth and he got so excited till you can see
Right.
the phone.
Right.
Tell me that's something that, that just happens to the jail all the time. And then I'll tell you that the jail has a lot of mentally ill people because those medications really dry his mouth out. But I believe everybody knew he was mentally ill. I believe everybody knew that he was in crisis. And from what I saw, there was no compassion. No officer. No nurse. Nobody. The nurses did nothing for him. You wait 15, 20 minutes after he's dead and you stick tubes down him. When I first saw my baby, I said, what happened to his lips? And they said, maybe they were trying to get a tube down. I said, if they had checked his heart, other nurse could have told them he's been dead for over 15 minutes. Don't do that. They just all stand around and some of the girls start beating harder and harder. I never had heard in all my years of CPR. From 19 years till about 5 years ago, I took CPR every year. And nobody says, if you don't have a pulse, just beat the crap out of him. And he'll stop breathing again. Because they were looking for a miracle. And Jamal was good, but I didn't see him being dead that long and somebody coming back and reviving And it's just sad because they all felt his pulse and didn't have one. And somebody said, well, why didn't the first young lady do anything? My explanation is that she saw he was dead. She was the one that saw everything, and she knew he was dead. And so she should have hollered to her partners, don't touch that man, he's dead. The policeman could have told him that, because you picking his body up. And I know you see his body temperature going down, but I even looked at his face. His face looks different. When they took that cap off from his face, look different. And when we first saw Jamal, he had a smile on his face. And so I told my son, I said, you know what? Jamal laughing at all of them. They murdered him. He wanted to be with Jesus. They took him. They took his body and they made a decision. Nobody allowed God to do his work. They all made decisions for Jamal's life. And I said, we better be careful. Because one day, somebody's going to get tired. We asking for peace. But everybody's not going to ask for peace. There are going to be some people that don't know God. Don't know nothing but peace. And this city's going to be in trouble. I still say this city's going to be in trouble if they keep up what's going on. And I just think that one police officer sees another black man dead, just like they rabbit hunting, like they were hunting for rats. And they just murdered him cold right out, telling no lies. I think there's been too much cover up. Too much.
Miss Amy Sutherland, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups, and I hope to have you on again soon.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.